Welcome to Puny Pod, where our recording desks are fall collection. IKEA, ass. Welcome to Puny Pod, everyone, the Marvel fandom podcast where we rewatch the MCU in release order. And over on our monthly Bugle episodes, we cover Marvel news. I'm Ryan, and my co-host, who I've worked with for 50 years. I trust him completely. Actually, when we first met, he thought I was a vampire, and he tried to stake me through the heart. Is David. David, how are we doing?
Oh, Karoon.
Man, trying to find the good quotes for this part. I obviously insert two quotes here at the top. It was tough for this.
It's not super quote heavy. A lot of visuals, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple you could pick. But yeah, I'm doing pretty well post Thanksgiving and back from a little travel. I'm doing well. How are you?
Heck yeah, not too shabby. I similarly post Thanksgiving, my breakfast this morning here on recording day is some leftover sweet potato casserole.
Okay.
But you know, we're making it through, and we're gonna talk about some Marvel stuff here, some Eternals.
As long as you didn't say, man, yeah, I have my leftover annual tofurkey that we're still working through, and I'd be like, what is happening? Who are you?
Yeah. Working my way towards travel. I'm headed to Vegas here in a couple of weeks, so that'll be fun.
Vegas, baby, Vegas. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I get to eat a lot of good food is the plan. So, right on. Well, this month we are covering Eternals. So, David, give us the deets on this movie that you famously did not watch until this month.
I started it. Okay, let's wash your mouth out. It's not like I had not pressed play on the Disney Plus before. But yeah, sure, the behind the scenes. Here's what's going on. Eternals, not the Eternals. I have to keep reminding myself, but simply Eternals. Released November 5, 2021. So it's 2 months after Shang-Chi. And what's interesting is that they weren't sure if they were going to release it to Disney Plus or in theaters because Black Widow bombed. They want stuff on Disney Plus, and they made it kind of contingent upon how Shang-Chi did. And so because it did well, they released it. Now, that to me, that seemed weird to me because you have to do a lot of stuff in order to release things in a theater. And to do it on that short notice seems to me to be kind of a bit of a myth. But so it said about 8 months after Endgame. And we'll get into like why they didn't interfere with Thanos. But Marvel saw the Eternals as this new opportunity for another, like this ensemble cast that's not a crossover, kind of like Guardians, right? If you think about it. So Phase 4, third movie, 7th installment. Overall, it is the 26th movie and 29th installment in the MCU. Runtime, a tidy 2 hours and 36 minutes. And when I say tidy, I'm being extremely sarcastic. Production budget, $200 million to make. Looks beautiful. Spent a lot of money on CGI and costumes and so forth. Opening weekend, it was $71 million. Domestic gross, $164 million. Worldwide gross, $402 million. So in 2021, it was the number 12 movie, right behind Sing 2. It was the number 3 movie that year because remember we had Spider-Man No Way Home, we had Shang-Chi, and then Black Widow was kind of lagging. And then it is number 33 MCU movie in terms of worldwide gross, right below Brave New World and ahead of Thunderbolts. Let's go to reception. Rotten Tomatoes, critic score, 47%. First movie to get a Rotten rating by Rotten Tomatoes. Audience score, 77. So if you average those, it is the second lowest movie of all time, right ahead of Brave New World and right ahead of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But not everyone hated it. 10-star review from IMDb from JRG31. Phenomenal. Between the range of representation by our beautifully star-struck cast to the outstanding, breathtaking production sets and extraterrestrial scenes of absolute art, this movie is a 10 out of 10 from start to finish. true artistry it takes to bring to life such comic accurate excellence. The the 10 stars were very funny. Some of them were kind of ironic. Some of them were trying to make up for the people who gave it a 0. But that was one that really seemed to really enjoy it. So they started working on this series way back when, like 2015. I was working with screenwriter John Ridley, who Academy Award winner for 12 Years a Slave, to craft a new TV series based on Jack Kirby's Eternal comics. But it did not move forward. 2018, that's when they started moving forward with the film. And in August, they selected a director. Marvel director shortlist included Chloé Zhao, who was offered Black Widow, Nicole Castle, who did Watchmen, Travis Knight, and the pair of Christina Gallego and Sarah Guerra, who did Birds of Passage. It was, she was approached about making the film. She bailed on Black Widow. And so, but she really wanted to make this film. So she basically made her own presentation. And it was so impressive. Marvel was worried that someone else was going to hire her. So they snapped her up. She is the first best director in the MCU. Others have won for other properties, but she was the first. It was released on, as I mentioned, on November 21, but it was pushed back a couple times because of the pandemic. Screenplay. So Ryan and Kaz Firpo, cousins, were originally brought in to write the script in May 2018. They said that a major inspiration was the 1999 limited comic book series Earth X by Jim Krueger and John Paul Leon, which is about a dystopian version of the Marvel Universe. Then Chloé Zhao came in. She worked on draft. And then about 4 months ahead of filming, they still don't have a screenplay. The script is not finalized. So Nate Moore introduced Zhao to Patrick Burley, who had been part of the Marvel Writers Program, to kind of come in and kind of punch it up. And he worked on it for about 3 months, finished it up basically like a month or two before filming, and mostly just doing things structural. So the cast, it is all brand new. Sort of. Gemma Chan as Cersei. He regretted bringing her in for the crappy role of Minerva in Captain Marvel and wanted to work with her again. And so she was selected for Cersei. Tatiana Maslany was also considered. She ended up She-Hulk. Richard Madden as Icarus. Alexander Skarsgård, Arnie Hammer,
Bill
Sam
Skarsgård.
Hugen.
Bill Skarsgård.
As
Crow?
No, Alexander. These were all considered. Armie Hammer, Charlie. Gotcha. Charlie Hunnam. Yeah, hey, if it's a Marvel movie, let's get a Skarsgård in here in one of the roles. So, Liam McHugh as Sprite. Millie Bobby Brown was approached for the role. Angelina Jolie as Athena, who I only learned was at one point in time considered direct for Captain Marvel. I think I'd forgotten that. Camille Nanjiani as Kingo. And it's kind of a sad story because he signed a multi-picture deal. He's like, this is going to set me up. I could do this. I could do some indie things. And then it completely fell apart. And he had there was such a bad reaction to the movie that he said he had to get therapy. It was kind of sounded like a not great experience. What's also funny is that he worked out feverishly, and Chloé Zhao basically requested him to dial it back because he was just overdoing it. Brian Terry Harry as Fastus. Barry Keoghan as Druig. Keanu Reeves, Rami Malek, Ian McShane were all considered for the role. There's a fun fan film of him playing Spider-Man, which I put the link in. You should check that out. It's pretty fun. Lauren Ridloff as Makari. She and the character and the actor are both deaf. Her husband was the ASL coach for the film. Oh, nice. Salma Hayek is Ajak. Don Lee is Gilgamesh. He is the first Korean superhero in the MCU. And Kit Harington is Dane Whitman. Kit. What I did not realize is that both Kit and Richard Madden were considered for the role of Reed Richards in Fantastic Four 2015. Good thing they dodged that bullet. Yeah. The movie was banned in a lot of movies, in a lot of countries. In China, did not come out in China because Chloé Zhao described China as a, quote, a place where there are lies everywhere. And it was also banned in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Oman due to the countries wanting to cut out the scenes of Fastos and his husband, and which Disney refused to allow. And then in Qatar and Kuwait, they have bands basically depicting gods and prophets on film. So this is start to finish a very Jack Kirby inspired thing. The opening credits we will see has the little Jack Kirby art. I know that there are a lot of comic connections. Tell us about what happened in the comics.
Yeah. So we could do a whole episode on comics here, and if I went into every single character and talked through exactly everybody, it would take us all day, and yeah, I decided instead to kind of just do the main groups, right? The because these are the Eternals are kind of like the X-Men in that, like, every character is interesting and there are definitely very interesting characters, but sometimes it's just about the unit, right? And that's where we're at here, is this is more just about the big unit. Randy Johnson.
I was going to say big unit. Nice call. The other thing was going to say, yeah, and unlike the X-Men, they actually made a movie about it. But let's keep going.
So, Eternals, the group of Eternals, introduced officially in Eternals #1, April 1976. That's a Jack Kirby joint. You're gonna hear, I think, actually every group I talk about was introduced. Yeah, all three groups I'm gonna talk about were introduced officially in that title. Now, there have been some retconned appearances, right? So as the Eternals developed in the comics, more and more different people were revealed to have been Eternals. And so some retconned first appearances here is we have Red Raven Comics #1, May of 1940. That's with the Olympian Mercury and the Eternal Brain. That is, one version of, okay, we went back in history and we said, okay, this was actually an Eternal. There's also Marvel Boy #1, August of 1950, where the Eternals from Uranus, Uranian Eternals were there.
It's okay for you to say the word. Jack.
And then Iron Man 1950, or Iron Man #55, October of 1972, which introduced us to Thanos, who, fun fact, in the comics, Thanos is a Eternal / Deviant. And so the Titanian, the Eternals from Titan, were introduced October of 1972. So kind of one of those things where it's like, these characters have been turned into Eternals. Their backstory has been changed. So technically an Eternal was introduced earlier, but the concept of Eternals was introduced.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the underlying concept is that aliens came here to basically create civilization, and the superheroes, the kind of like the myth behind the superhero myth.
Yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit as I get into their story beats here. So like David said, the Eternals didn't just show up, they were created. The Celestials experimented on early humans and made essentially 3 branches of life. You have your baseline, normal humans, you have your chaotic deviants, and then you have the Eternals. The Eternals were powerhouses built with a purpose. They were in ancient Mesopotamia. They were in Babylon. Humanity didn't know their names, but remembered them as gods, right? Remembered them as their myths. Two of the original Eternals were Kronos and Uranos. They split over philosophy. Uranos wanted domination. Kronos wanted to protect. The fallout shattered the Eternal society. Uranos was exiled, his followers scattered to the stars, and Kronos' lineage became the dominant earthbound legacy. After Kronos literally blew himself apart in a cosmic accident, which granted all the Eternals the ability to channel immense cosmic energy, they gained the powers that would rival the gods that they inspired. You have Athena, who's often mistaken for Athena, bonded to the humans of ancient Greece and blurred the line between eternal and myth. Icarus fought deviant warlords in the shadows of early civilization. Gilgamesh, yes, that Gilgamesh, became the forgotten one because he spent too much time protecting humans directly. And Cersei, she loved humanity so deeply that she literally joined the Avengers and tried living among us. The Deviants were their eternal foil, unstable, constantly mutating, resentful of their beautiful, imperfect, eternal counterparts. Their war with the Deviants, the Eternals' war with the Deviants stretched across millennia from underground civilizations to oceanic cities lost to time. When the Celestials returned to judge Earth, the Eternals had to decide whether to continue serving their creators or defy them in defense of humanity. And that tension really never faded. Um, Duty versus compassion, programming versus free will, godhood versus connection. In the modern age, the Eternals have been forced out of the shadows. Cersei has become a public-facing hero, living in Manhattan, joining the Avengers. Icarus resurfaced as a protector when the deviant threats returned, sometimes openly, sometimes in the margins. Athena became the reluctant strategist, advising rather than ruling. When humanity returned, when humanity learned of the existence of the Eternals, reactions were split: awe, fear, worship, denial. Their presence triggered global philosophical debates about evolution, divinity, and destiny. Some Eternals choose to integrate, teaching, aiding, and protecting, while others withdrew, believing humanity must rise and fall on its own merit. Their modern struggle isn't just against the deviants or cosmic edicts. It's about staying relevant in a world that no longer believes in gods. Because at the end of the day, the comic book Eternals are a paradox, right? They wear human faces, but they're near gods. And so that's kind of the comic book background. The original team of uh of Eternals was actually pretty well represented here in the movie. So you had Icarus, Makari, Cersei, Athena, Ajax, and then a couple that aren't represented. So you have Domo, who was actually a person, not a ship, right? So in the movie, they call their ship the Domo,
Mm-hmm.
but in the comics, he's a person. He's kind of the administrator of their uh, city. And Zurus, who was not represented in the movie at all. But he was actually kind of the original Prime Eternal, which is the leader of the Eternals. Was Zurus, which is a little interesting. I think that they just set this like after him, because he's less interesting than like Ajax was or anything like that. I will also note that in the comic books, Olympia is a city that they built on Earth, where they would meet the Olympian gods, um, instead of being a planet that they're from.
Right.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Um, so some notable Prime Eternals. So, like I mentioned, the Prime Eternal is the leader. In this movie, we see Ajax pass that duty on to Cersei. But in the comic books, you have Ajax, you have Icarus. Athena served as Prime Eternal for a while. Cersei serving as Prime Eternal for a while. And actually, Thanos served as Prime Eternal for a time. And then actually was dethroned and deposed by Druig, who is the most recent Prime Eternal. So, moving on to the Celestials. Like I mentioned, introduced Eternals #1, Jack Kirby. Celestials are cosmic architects, literally the makers of life. Long before civilizations, before language, before myths, before everything, they came to Earth as towering beings of armor and unknowable purpose. They didn't terraform the planet, they rewrote its biology, tinkering with early humans and creating 3 branches of life, like I mentioned already. Um, every piece of evolution, every leap in cognitive ability, every mutation traces back to their experiments. Asherim the Judge is their most notorious presence. He decides whether a civilization is allowed to survive or must be wiped clean. If Ashram gives the thumbs down, worlds burn, species vanish, history ends. There's also Tiamat, the sleeping celestial, buried within Earth's mantle. Hey, that's sounding familiar. A being whose awakening would have shattered the planet if not interrupted. If Zeron the Tester, he seeds worlds with cosmic math and watches what happens, kind of like a scientist watches petri dishes. Whenever the Celestials return, it becomes a turning point in history, not metaphorically. Their reappearance have sparked religious upheaval, mass hysteria, fundamental shifts in how humanity perceives itself. Gods shall become small, empires become dust. Standing before a celestial is like standing before the concept of creation itself. Within the Marvel universe, we also see that the Celestials have influenced a lot of things. They influenced the X gene that famously created the X-Men. They've seeded alien evolution, so not just here on Earth, but also, as I mentioned, on Uranus and on Titan. They've done work. They've determined the fate of worlds like Skrullos, which it's long before the Skrulls became refugees. They've judged Asgard, defied Odin, forced pantheons to kneel. They are like the ultimate gods of the Marvel universe, right? They are above the kind of mythological gods that we know. You have the Eternals. But what's interesting is the Eternals don't see themselves as kind of like gods or
You mean the Celestials?
yes, thank you. The Celestials don't see themselves as gods or rulers or anything like that. Instead, they see themselves as gardeners, right? So species grow, species fail, they observe, prune, and reseed and move on. Earth is just one among billions that they've been doing. Humanity has learned the existence of the Celestials and understands them at this point. And in the comics, humanity kind of knows what's going on. So kind of a big concept, and this is very Jack Kirby, right? This is very trippy Jack Kirby stuff. We talked about this a little bit, if I remember right, in Doctor Strange, that he kind of had these very psychedelic ideas and very big ideas. And the Eternals and Celestials, and I'll get to the Deviants here in a second, all kind of in that same idea. So the Deviants, again, they were the chaotic branch, right? So when the Celestials rewrote them or rewrote early human DNA, you have the Eternals, stable, beautiful, godlike, and then you have the Deviants who never settle, right? They constantly mutate. Their earliest civilizations ran deep beneath the earth and across lost continents. In the drowned ruins of Lemuria, the Deviants built palaces and dynasties long before human kingdoms existed. They ruled. Humans were seen as beasts, slave stock at best by the Deviants. Their empire ended not through human rebellion, but through celestial judgment. A purge so catastrophic it nearly erased the entire species of Deviants and reshaped the planet's coastlines. Some Deviants, like Crow, who we met in this movie, evolved into something more sophisticated, capable of intellect, leadership, and even uneasy alliances with the Eternals and humans when necessary. Others, twisted by constant mutation, embodied nightmares, forms that echoed mythic monsters, dragons, demons, sea serpents, horned beasts. Humanities wrote legends about them, never knowing they were actually real. Their hatred of the Eternals isn't just species rivalry, it's existential resentment. One branch being the Eternals got, all the best, right? They got the eternal beauty, cosmic powers, and near immortality. The other got eternal change, deformity, knowledge that their creators saw them as unstable prototypes. So the war between Eternals and Deviants wasn't just good versus evil; it's symmetry versus chaos, order versus flux. In the modern age, the Deviants have splintered. Some hide among humanity and plot revenge beneath the waves. Some try to negotiate survival in a world that would rather they don't exist. Crow, in particular, has evolved into something tragically complex. A leader still driven by survival instinct, but capable of empathy and even love. Deviants aren't just monsters, they're a species fighting against the role they were assigned. Because the Eternals represent what humanity aspired to be, noble, wise, immortal, the Deviants represent what humanity fears becoming. Uncontrolled, mutated, forgotten, condemned by forces beyond understanding. They are the living proof that evolution isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's a struggle for identity in a world that wishes you had never been made. So yeah, I would say overall the movie got it fairly right, and I think that's what struck me is that, like, some minor inconsistencies, like Olympia being a planet versus a city, and yada yada yada. There were some minor inconsistencies there, but overall, and I guess the idea of them being cosmic robots versus mutated humans also is a bit of a change that they introduced for the movie, but
You mean enhanced? Don't say mutants. So did you read the comics? Did you read Eternal comics at all, or no?
I did not. Did you?
I did not.
Yeah.
I started reading comics right around that time. Seeing all the characters, the teams introduced in that Eternals #1, the thing had to be like 200 pages long because there was just so much stuff going on there. I didn't read the Eternals when I was growing up. I was familiar with them, but that was definitely Jack Kirby being Jack Kirby and doing some weird stuff.
Yep, Jack Kirby doing his heavy psychedelic kind of stuff, and it's cool, right? And it's interesting, and we'll talk about it I think when we get into the movie here in a second, but it's a really cool concept. It's a very big concept, and I think I need to go back and read them because I think it would be interesting to read them, especially with a modern sensibility. Um, but yeah, it's you know, it's certainly not Spider-Man, the kid who got bit by a spider and turned
No, no, it is not.
got the powers. It's much bigger concepts, and there's a lot of existentialism in it, and a lot of um a lot of big heavy concepts there too. So well, David, I'm gonna ask this question. And this is one of our traditional questions, so I'm gonna ask it, and I'll let you talk a little bit here. But what was your first viewing of this one like? And what were you? Do you remember? We've been coupling this one lately because it's a little bit more recent. What do you remember about the release period, the release window for this movie? So,
Okay.
yeah.
I do remember it was released. I remember because I didn't read the Eternals comics. It wasn't something I really was looking forward to. Eventually arrives at Disney Plus. I think I mentioned a few times before. I tried watching it. I got to Babylon. I'm like, I can't follow what's going on. There's too many characters, and life takes over, and I didn't see it. But I kind of felt like that person who says, "Yeah, I've been to all the states, but you've only really been to the Minnesota airport. You haven't Minneapolis airport. You haven't really been to Minnesota." And so this was the one that was kind of the final puzzle piece to put together, if you will, to finish off the set. I wasn't on. Do I remember my first watch? Yes, I do. I think I texted you like it begins, and then I texted you like 2 minutes later after the exposition. I'm already lost. I think I started it in true David fashion. I started little bit late at night, and I ended up like team at the end of the movie just kind of froze, and I was like, okay, I got to restart this thing. So sitting down for it, I was, that was my first viewing. How about you?
I saw this in the theaters. I remember going with my wife. We were married at this point. I just realized that we were actually married because we got married in 2020. So for all these 2021 movies, when we were going to see them, we were married. That's weird. Anyway,
It's not weird that you're married. It's just weird that you're remembering that.
Yeah, it's weird. What's weird is that like the MCU has gone from me going, with my parents with Iron Man, and gone all the way to the point where I am now going with my then wife and still wife, right?
And
But
comic book guys in between, right?
Yep, exactly. And soon enough, my child will join us. And in a few years, we'll be talking about movies I saw, with the kid. But wow, that's weird. Anyway,
I'd like to note at this time Ryan having a little existential crisis as he's thinking. He's stepping back and thinking about life and its profound nature. So, were you?
Yeah.
So you've seen this movie before. I had not. What were you thinking about on rewatch? Like, what did you want to get out of it?
Yeah. So this one is a popular one in my family. So my wife loves this movie. This is like one that she will turn on just to turn on and just to watch. It's one it's on around me often. I don't necessarily sit down and watch it all that often. It's kind of, I know it and I like it, but I would rather watch something like our next movie, which would be Spider-Man No Way Home. I'd rather watch like something like that as just a turn on and watch from this kind of era, but yeah, so I remembered it well, and I remember the gist. I was excited to get back in and sit it and watch it with intent, because I had not watched that. I had not watched it with intent in a long while. And so I was really excited, and sitting back down to it, I was kind of like realizing how much of it I had forgotten. Like, I remembered for example, I remembered Fastus's like neighborhood scene, like his scene in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't necessarily remember the atomic bomb thing. And like, honestly, I forgot Angelina Jolie was in this whole movie.
She's a little forgettable, but
yeah. So yeah, definitely was kind of excited to get back into it and watch it with some intent, and actually sit down and pay attention to it, which was cool. And it was cool to get back to it. I think we may have differing feelings about this movie. I'm sensing. We'll see where we get at the end, but yeah, David, anything, you talked about this was your first viewing. Was there anything going into this movie, were you excited to finally sit down and watch it, or was it kind of begrudging, like, I guess we got to get through this one?
It's a good question. Oftentimes we joke about, like, not joke, but we talk about like what you're looking into. It's usually, oh, I want to see how this character, or I forgot this part of the movie, or how does this feed into the larger MCU? And for me, it was a couple different things. I think because it has been kind of lambasted by some, it appears kind of near the bottomish of the MCU movie rankings. I did want to go into with like open eyes. And when I was reading more about the production and the director, I was actually more looking forward to it. Like, the things, it's visually beautiful. And so I kind of went into it with an open mind. But I'm not going to lie, there was an element where, when you have that dream that you're back in college and you have an exam and you feel completely unprepared and you're sitting down for it. And that's what I felt like watching. I was like, because I couldn't rely upon any kind of general knowledge. Couldn't like you and I could go through, I don't know, half the movies in the MCU, and we could probably do a scene by scene and just make up an episode, right?
Yeah.
Kind of wing our way. Can we wing our way through Iron Man? Absolutely, right? No problem. Like, probably remember most of the quotes. And for this one,
kind of did.
Well, go back and listen to episode 1. Some of the early ones were not as structured and organized. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. But this one I didn't have that, and so for me, it was like I was a little bit nervous because I don't have that ability to kind of like pull from my history to talk about. Oh yeah, I remember the Fastos scene, or I remember this scene. But there are a lot of actors in this. A lot of beautiful actors, I would add, in this movie, and so I was just kind of like open-minded, like, let's see it. Let's not, I may not enjoy it quite as much as RG831, but let's go. Let's see what it's like. So
fair enough. Well, we'll break down the movie here just after this quick ad break. All right, Puny Podians, welcome back from that commercial break. I hope that you buy every single thing that is advertised there. So let's get into our breakdown of 2021's The Eternals. Eternals.
I'm just doing the same thing the entire time. I just want to keep typing The Eternals will return. Like, no, it's just Eternals. Just
drop the. So we open up with an opening crawl. Suddenly we're watching a Star Wars movie. Opening crawl tells us that Arishem, the prime celestial, created the first sun, sparking life. Deviants soon emerged, and they prey on intelligent beings. So Arishem placed 10 immortals to Earth to protect humanity. These Eternals left their home, Olympia, aboard the spaceship Domo. And then we get the
real quick. Nit number 1. The crawl. Why wasn't Sprite, who can create illusions and tell stories? Like, why doesn't she like? That's how we introduce it rather than the crawl. The crawl I thought was kind of a cold of. I thought I was getting some Star Wars. It's not Star Wars, but yeah, and I think I texted you like, dude, I'm already lost.
Yeah.
It
would have been cool. I think this is an art decision, right? Like Chloé Zhao is kind of an art house director, right?
Yeah.
Like she was coming off of like her Academy Award win for Nomadland, which is like, for those who don't know, like the movie that immediately preceded this for Chloé Zhao is like part documentary, part fiction about people who live in like travel trailers, and motorhomes and that sort of thing, and very like grounded, hard hitting kind of art style movie. So to set a scene for this movie, it was, and I will say at the time it was talked about heavily of like, oh, it's this kind of art director coming in, which is really interesting for the MCU.
Which makes perfect sense for how like her approach to the style. And I was listening to Patton Oswalt. He was actually being interviewed when he was talking about being in the movie and talking about like Chloé Zhao as this almost like documentarian type of director. So it makes sense to have it crawl in hindsight, because you have this illusionist who can recreate stories.
Cool. For sure.
But there's also the element of like, what is going on here? And so anyway.
Yeah.
The by the way, we've seen Celestials in the MCU, and this was actually one of the things that really struck me on rewatch. Was like, oh, well, we've actually seen them, right? Mm-hmm. Ego, Celestial, Peter and Mantis, half Celestials. I forgot that Nowhere was a decapitated Celestial.
Yep,
where they're living,
the head of a Celestial. Yeah,
which when I'm looking at photos, like, oh, okay, I remember it. It was in my brain, but I hadn't really like put it together.
Yeah, and he looks different, right? Because like all the rest of the Celestials kind of look like big suits of armor with like multiple eyes and stuff, whereas like Nowhere is very much a human skull, right? It's a giant human skull floating in space.
Right. And so, unlike the comic book where you kind of retconned it and they're saying to you, oh, yeah, we forgot to tell you that, Ego was a living, like a celestial. They actually said it at the time and didn't really. So now, watching this movie, I'm like, oh, okay. That kind of connects it. Okay.
Yep. So then we get the Marvel logo, which, as David mentioned a little bit in our production details, it is really cool because it does start off with Jack Kirby art, which is so iconic. Like, you can just look and you see that is that just very, very distinct style. So first couple flips you see are from Eternals comics, and it's that old school Jack Kirby psychedelic bright colors and lots of waves and the Kirby crackle going on. So I did love that.
Yeah. Also, I like that Shang-Chi. He's appears in the logo sequence as well. And it's the last time we see him for a very long period of time.
So then we open up to 5000 BC in Mesopotamia. Deviants arrive to consume the local citizens, but are defeated by the Eternals. We get a quick CGI fight scene where we see Icarus, Makari, Kingo, Thena, and Gilgamesh use their powers to save the town. They are joined by other Eternals, Circe, Ajax, Phastos, Sprite, and Druig, who travel to other civilizations to defend them from the Deviants. But they are barred from interfering with human conflicts so that the humans will evolve naturally. All this then we jump ahead to present day London, where we see Circe as a scientist and teacher at London's Natural History Museum. She arrives late for her class and finds her colleague Dane Whitman is filling in as she teaches her students about apex predators. A huge earthquake hits. We see Circe using her powers to transform inanimate matter in when a huge fossil falls off and almost kills a student. She turns it into dust. We cut to Dane's birthday party later that night. It turns out that Circe and Dane are dating, and he asks her to move in with him. When she declines, he asks if she's secretly a wizard because of the unusual things around her.
She's just a sorcerer, just without a hat, as we've learned.
He says that Sprite, who lives with Circe, told him that Circe's ex-boyfriend can fly and dumped her a century ago. Dang, Sprite.
Sprite, she's just a hater in this movie. I'm not going to lie.
Every time I watch this movie, it takes me a minute to remember, because, like, in context, I think he's talking about how his water turns to coffee, and then he says, like, Sprite told me he dumped you a month ago or a century ago. And for half a second, I think it's like he's trying to tell her that she spiked his beverage, Sprite. And then I'm like, oh yeah, the character's name is Sprite, and but yeah.
Yeah, thanks Google Docs for trying to keep correcting it to Spirit. I'm like, no, it's really Sprite, but thank you though. Appreciate it.
So as they walk home, they are attacked by a deviant named Crow, voiced by Bill Skarsgård, aka Pennywise from It. Circe and Sprite are confused as they defeated the last deviant 500 years ago and have been waiting for Arisham's orders since. Circe and Sprite swing into action, but are distinctly underpowered as compared to the other Eternals. Icarus arrives and uses his flight and I-beam powers, aka Superman's power set, to drive off the deviant. But it shows a healing factor, something no deviant has displayed before. We will see later on how it gets that power. But then we get the awkward reunion of Robb Stark and Jon Snow, who are in love with Circe. Sorry. Just the actors.
I like Dane's like, well, I guess you must be the pilot, right?
Yeah, right.
Also, the scene where she turns the bus that like flips over to like rose petals is just beautiful. Like the CGI in this, the visuals, I should point out, like we won't stop every single point in time, but it is lovely to look at.
Yeah, they did a really like hats off to the visual effects crew, and I think it's a testament to like watching throughout this movie. It's so grounded in reality, and I think they shot a lot. Like in the end, the like thanks to this place, that place, it's pretty lengthy, so I think they shot a lot on location, which allowed them to spend a lot of money creating cool effects rather than creating cool environments, right?
Right. I figure like Ong Lee is watching this. Who's like, why can't I have had any of this stuff? Like my CG looked like crap, and this looks amazing. But yeah, no, I agree with you. Visually, it's a beautiful movie for sure.
Yeah. Cersei comes clean to Dane and explains their backstory. The Eternals arrived 7,000 years ago to stop the Deviants. Dane asks why they didn't fight Thanos or other wars, aka our obligatory, hey, why weren't you around in Endgame scene? And Cersei explains that they could not interfere with human conflicts, so the humans could evolve. Dane draws the connection between Icarus and the boy who flew too close to the sun, with Cersei admitting that Sprite made that story up in classical Athens. She then tells Dane that she was with Icarus for about 5,000 years, but moved on after he disappeared. More on that later.
The other thing there are a few things that I've now having watched it 2.5 times. A lot of things were like, oh, I must have been really dumb when I first watched this. Like all the names, the as you know, the names that came from the Eternals, Icarus to Icarus, Makari to Mercury, Athena to Athena, really I kind of jumped out when watching it for the second time.
Yeah. Some of the less known ones, we'll just run through these real quick. So Icarus, right? Athena, Makari, Mercury, Ajax, Trojan war hero, Phastos, Hephaestus, which was a Greek god of artisans. Kingo was likely a Babylonian god, Kingu. Circe, Greek sorceress. Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh, right? The original hero. Gilgamesh is the legend of Gilgamesh is like the original archetype for heroes. Sprite, sprites are a thing, right? No, not just the soda, but that's kind of like a group of legends, generally fairies, kind
Water
of thing.
pixies, yeah, totally, yeah.
Crow, probably Kronos, and then Druid. Druid's a little bit of a tough one. My own theory is that like he would have inspired the name of like druids, right? Like magic people. But that one's a little bit more of a stretch, right? Like everybody else is almost like 1-to-1 lines, but Druid is a little bit, you have to kind of stretch it a little bit. So then we find out that the unprecedented global earthquakes and the return of the Deviants who are hunting the Eternals now, not humans that they normally prey upon, seems like too much of a coincidence. So Icarus, Cersei, and Sprite decide to go visit Ajax and have a big family reunion in South Dakota.
First, we go to 575 Babylon, BC Babylon. We get a few cutscenes of the Eternals where they're living there. And just to pause here for a second, I would have been perfectly fine if the entire movie were set in Babylon and you just get this like, we jump around a lot, which for me as a viewer is a little bit challenging at times. I got used to it, but no understanding like how the story beats fit together. And so we get a few cutscenes. Ajax tells Erisham, who's voiced by David Kay. When you were reading the comic notes, for some reason it flipped in my mind. It was Asheram. And then I just thought of like, oh, what if Asher did all the lines of the movie?
Oh gosh.
Right. Anyway, save that for the secret show. So she tells Erisham, they hop on the Zoom. that the Eternals are continuing to defeat the Deviants, and that she is worried about Earth. So she's, for the very first time, worried about humans, whereas opposed to just for millions of years following Arishem and, this is the mission. He reminds her of the mission and warns him not to get attached to the planet. We cut to Phastos, and this is, again, some of the cool visuals where he is like basically creating this kind of this Tony Stark kind of, the visuals, if you will, where he's making a steam engine for the Babylonians. But I think it was Ajax who said, they're not ready for this. And then he just like splits it, creates a plow, and Cersei walks in. She says, what do I miss? And Phastos says, nothing, just the screams of my deep disappointment, which so good. So when the Eternals settled in Babylon, they had a big party. Cersei danced with the locals while the other Eternals did their own thing. So Sprite, she's entertaining the locals with like, an illusion show, if you will, right? And fireworks, hey, maybe hop over to the parks and do a little World of Color. I'd like to do that. Makari, she exchanges stolen artifacts to trade with the locals for the Emerald Tablet. Druid, you start to see the very first instance of him interfering by controlling the minds of the locals who were fighting, I believe it was at the time. Cersei took a liking, a kindness to the humans, and so she learned their language, she learned their custom, she helped the local women prepare food and helped them to irrigate the land. We get the first kind of romantic interlude between Cersei and Icarus. Icarus is learning the local language so he can, spend more time with her. It says, I am very beautiful, which was one of the funnier lines of the film.
Yeah.
Eventually they consummate their relationship. They get married in 400 AD in the Gupta Empire. Everyone's super happy, except for Sprite. She looks grouchy in the background, if you will. So
I think this is our first. So I noted this in our notes. I think mainline MCU. This is our first, and I don't know a better way to say this, but I don't mean it the way I say it or the way it's going to sound. I think this is our first explicit sex scene in the MCU. Like Tony woke up and rolled out of bed with Christine, right? But like that's more implicit. That's not like we didn't see him humping. to put it crassly, right?
What is so funny is like in my mind, I'm like, what word can I substitute that won't get bleeped out? And yeah, that's the one that popped in my mind. So
yeah. So I mean, obviously, Deadpool showed a lot of that, and so did I think there was probably some in like Netflix. I think you noted Netflix's Daredevil, but I think this is the first time where a marriage has been consummated, if you will.
Getting that beak wet. Good for you, Icarus and Cersei.
And
beautiful couple. Like again, we should pause for a second. Say the cast is, fantastic to look at. I don't. We'll get into a little bit later on in terms of like the chemistry of the two, but this is they are married. It is 400 AD, and they're. And
I think that's our first marriage on screen of a hero that I can think of. Like Tony Stark went to a wedding, right? But that wasn't. And obviously Tony's married to Pepper, but we never saw that wedding.
No.
I
think you're right.
Famously, what's his name? Tom Holland thought he went to a wedding at the end of Endgame.
I think you might be right. I had to think about that. I hadn't thought about that. So we go to present day South Dakota. Ajax, they're done with their mission and they're just all chilling, right? Icarus, Cersei, and Sprite visit Ajax at her home in South Dakota. When they get to her house, they find her corpse. She is frozen, basically like her body's kind of frozen over because she's been outside. She is the first Eternal to die. Sprites think that the Deviant they fought in London killed Ajax. She kind of puts two to two together and realizes, okay, that was probably the Deviant because they absorbed her power because she saw the healing element of Crow in London. So while they are around the body, the small, it's a kind of golden sphere, something the size, larger than a marble, kind of leaves Ajax's body and then goes into Cersei, kind of like in the right below her throat, if you will. And she is now the new Prime Eternal. Arishem then contacts Cersei and leaves her a cryptic message that, quote, "It is almost time." Cersei tells Sprite and Icarus what happened, and he wonders whether she actually contacted Arishem, citing mad weary, which is a mental condition specific to Eternals in which their memories over a millennia just causes hallucination. I can speak, and like psychosis. It just kind of makes you crazy over time. You had a comment about the mad weary.
I just hate the name. It's just so dumb. I get it, right? And I think when it's written, because I this might be one of the first times where I actually sat down and watched it with subtitles. And so seeing, like, if I were to see it in the comics where it's like MAH apostrophe D W apostrophe YRY, okay, that seems a little bit more mystical, and otherwise it just sounds like somebody with a bad accent is just saying they're tired.
Yeah,
You're mad weary.
I'm mad sleepy. No, you're right. You look at it and you could be like some sort of like Welsh or Celtic,
Right.
like
Yeah.
word, if you will. And saying they're mad weary just sounds weird. So we're 1521. We flash back to the Spanish invasion of the Aztec Empire to Tenochtitlan. I know I messed that up. In 1521, the invasion occurs at the same time as the Eternals are eliminating. These are the last of the Deviants. This is the last they'd seen from 500 years ago. Druig notes that the battle is genocide and is frustrated with the Eternals' abstinence from human affairs as the Spanish and the Aztecs as they fight. Athena warns everyone is going to die before she's taken over by the Mad Weary. She attacks her allies before she's stopped by Gilgamesh. Ajax offers to cure Athena's affliction at the cost of her memories, but Gilgamesh volunteers to look over her. He acknowledges that he may have to kill her again if she turns again. So there you start to see this. Obviously, they've had some sort of relationship over thousands of years. They're obviously very close, if you will. Druig is frustrated with the mission. He leaves Eternals to end the Spanish conflict himself. And with the Deviants eradicated, Ajax releases the Eternals to go their own way and encourages them to live their lives and find their own purposes until, we know what happens later in the movie.
Yep. So later in the movie, we are in present day Mumbai. And Icarus, Cersei, and Sprite travel to meet Kingo, who has transformed himself into a Bollywood star. His valet, Karun Patel, played by Harish Patel, has tells Kingo to go because his family needs him. They all hop on a jet to track down Thena and Gilgamesh as Karun films Kingo's documentary,
which is very funny the whole way through.
I loved it. I have liked oh gosh, the actor who plays Kingo. I literally was just about to say
Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah, I've liked Kumail Nanjiani for a long time. I've seen him. I love Silicon Valley. I am a big fan of Kumail's. Like, even in the podcast space, he used to show up on like Doug Loves Movies and some other podcasts that I listen to, and I have always really enjoyed Kumail, and so like to get him in the MCU was really, really fun. Absolutely ripped, like you said, like had to back off of how built he got, but I loved this turn for him, and the character fit him well as well.
Yeah, I did like Karun. He was, adds a little kind of voice as his valet. Is kind of a fun intercession. Kind of takes our spot. We are, the human among the Eternals, and he's documenting it. I do like the fact that he thought that Kingo was a vampire and tried to stake him, and he's like, and Kingo's like, yeah, I'm not quite over it quite yet. I've apologized for 50 years. And he's like, I guess it's a reference to the eternal vampiro who had fangs and was commonly thought to be a vampire.
Gotcha.
And so first pin for later in the movie.
So then we go over to Australia. They arrive in Australia. They make their way past dead deviants before they reach Gilgamesh. He is distraught when they tell him that Ajax is dead and drops his pie. And he's wearing a magnificent apron. They encounter Thena, who is still under the control of Mad Weary. She attacks again, but Sprite and Gilgamesh are able to remind her of her past, and she backs down. They enjoy a meal, including a drink, which is a trio of wine, beer, and mead. I know what we're drinking in the super secret spoiler show.
Oh, I'm already looking for it.
Which was made for Troy soldiers. There's also a thing, piece that was, or a part of the drink that was corn mashed up by Gilgamesh in his own mouth and fermented in his own spit.
Which is great when you see Camille Nanjiani drink it and then spit it back into the thing.
Yeah. Cersei leaves dinner and contacts Erishim, and he tells her of their true purpose. Erishim says, "You were sent to Earth to help build to help the birth of the celestial Tiamat. Every billion years, new celestials must be born. I planted celestial seeds into a host of planets across the universe. The planet Earth was chosen to host the celestial Tiamat. In order to grow, Tiamat needs vast amounts of energy from intelligent life. The Deviants prevented this by consuming humans until the Eternals eliminated them. Now, the human population of this planet has reached the required amount. It is time for the emergence to begin."
So we're about an hour in, and we get hit with this nugget, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. That's the plan. And so, but it required this level of. And by the way, very good job with the Erisham voice. I like it.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to more with. We'll just have to borrow Asher and have him do the lines. But now it's like, okay, this sort of makes sense. But I'm getting real kind of Matrix vibes when we see like how they're built, and like you're seeing how the sausage is made. And I love the first Matrix movie, don't get me wrong. Second and third ones, not as much. But anyway.
Yeah, there definitely is some, like, especially in the next scene where like Erisham tells Cersei that there's no Olympia, her true home is the World Forge, where he built all the Eternals. He explains that she has no memories because he wipes the essentially the hard drive of memories after every emergence, although he keeps a little flash drive of it. That's where I agree. I kind of get that like Matrix, when especially in the third one when they go to when Neo, spoiler alert for like a 20-year-old movie, but Neo goes to the architect's kind of lab, whatever you want to call it, the room where he watches everything. I definitely got the same vibe when Erisham is kind of explaining, this is kind of a locked cycle. There's no breaking it, right? We do this every single time.
Yep.
Erisham adds that the Deviants are also celestial servants sent to each planet to clear out predators so that intelligent life could grow, but there was a design flaw and the Deviants became predators themselves. Erisham admits that he lost control over the Deviants, so he created the Eternals, synthetic beings incapable of evolution, to fix this mistake. I will note in the comics, going back to consummating the marriage thing, Eternals can reproduce with other species, but not with each other. So, fun fact for you.
That's how we got Thanos, right?
Yep. The Eternals realize that they have been leading Earth towards destruction, and they are the bad guys. Cersei tells them that they need to stop the birth of the Celestial. Icarus says they need to find the others, Druig, Makari, and Festos, before they decide what to do about the emergence.
So let's go to, by the way, I did not look to see where all the scenes were shot. I know that they filmed a lot in London. The director is known for like filming in South Dakota, like all of her films. Mm-hmm. They found a spot in England which looked like South Dakota. I don't know that they're really in Amazon, but I'm here for it. It looks really pretty. We travel to the Amazon forest where Druig has taken over a small town, and mind controlled everyone there. Think WandaVision and Westview. Except he hasn't created an illusion of a town. He's just mind controlling them
It's a straight up cult.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Matching clothes, everything.
Yeah. After learning the truth about their mission, Druig he's not down. He's not down for it anymore. He's like, I'm not doing this. And he's kept them basically safe for generations. Gilgamesh and Athena share a touching scene where she thanks him for taking care of him, and he says he would do it again on any planet. So you see that this very strong bond, which I kind of I can't say on rewatch, on watch, I will say, was like touching. It was nice to see that. I would like to have seen kind of more of that, if you will. We'll talk about the ways in which might have liked or disliked certain things later on. But Kingo startles Sprite. She's staring at Icarus. He shows up and he does the whole Peter Pan comparison. He's Peter. She's Tinkerbell. The child with unrequited love for Peter. And then she asks, why did Arishem make me this way? And what is then funny is that Kroon is filming and Sprite is pissed. He's like, I thought you got rid of it. And Kroon's like, always bring backups.
How many cameras do you have, young man?
So Cersei somehow has reception in the Amazon. I have lots of questions about that. And she tells Dane that she needs to reconcile with his estranged uncle. But she can't bring herself to tell him why, which is because the world is going to end. Cersei asks, and then we have the interaction between Cersei and Icarus, and she asks why he left, and he starts to go into the answer, and just then Crow and the other Deviants attack the compound. So, cue up the CGI battle, nighttime version. There was a lot of CGI battles were nighttime, and I realized it's easier to have CGI nighttime because it's, for whatever reason, I think like daylight when you have shadows and stuff, I think it's more challenging.
Yeah,
I would just say visually, it's kind of, for me, it was kind of, I don't know about you on your TV, but it was kind of hard to see.
There was some dark and there's like a whole set of movies that end up being a little bit dark, and this was definitely one of those that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which is, it's fine. Look, it's a minor nit, but it did take me onto the second rewatch when I realized all the Deviants are like the same flying dragon thing. There's a bull, there's a dragon, there's a big dog. There's, you're probably saying, you what a dummy. Like, how did you not notice that? I was like, I don't know. There's a lot going on the screen. Anyway, so they get big CGI battle. Icarus is blasting Deviants with his eyes. We get the funny Kinga. He creates the big, laser ball because he shoots from his fingers, goes underneath the Deviant, throws it to the brain, and goes dishoom, and just blood just falls all over him. And he's like, did you get that? I got it, sir. It was great. Yeah. And then you get this, again, another beautiful scene where Cersei, she's attacked by Deviant, goes into a little pool of water, and then does something to turn it into a tree, which she was shocked to find because she doesn't have power over sentient things. She can only
She can't turn Dane into a giraffe. Famously,
I've always wanted to be a giraffe. So they eventually kill all the Deviants except for Crow gets away. Crow can't land. Crow is fighting Gilgamesh, and then because he has Ajax memories, he understands the relationship. So he goes to attack Athena. And that's how he gets the upper hand. Crow manages to kill Gilgamesh and achieves true sapient learning of the Deviants' true purpose as he, mirrored fail of experiments and he basically vows to kill all the Eternals. And at this point in time, now Crow is more human-like. I'm getting serious Ultron vibes at this point in time.
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård even kind of sounded like... there was a moment there where I was like, wait a sec, is that what's his name who was Ultron? From The Office. Well, it's where I always think of him from, but
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come to us. And I'm just in the middle of a scene. I'm just gonna break in to say who it was. But
Yeah, please do. But at that point in time, I was like, okay, you have no strings on me. Blah blah. Okay, it's fine. It's Ultron. It's
James
great.
Spader.
Thank you. We see Gilgamesh, kind of a very sad scene, cremated on a funeral pyre, which we had seen with
Darth Vader.
I was going to say Frigga, but okay, yeah, Darth Vader too. Like, not to spoil Return of the Jedi for anyone. 52-year-old movie. It's fine. Themis scatters his ashes. It also gives it very like Tony Stark vibes as well, right? The other, Eternals debate what to do. Drug doesn't believe he can control Celestial's mind, so then they decide to turn to Phastos for help. And I thought it was kind of touching the thing that Gilgamesh, he says, remember, that's the last thing he says before he dies. And it's just very kind of like touching the scene between him and Athena. You see a very real connection there. I know I've said it a couple times. In the comics also too, Gilgamesh's character is often referred to as the Forgotten One. So we get a quick flashback scene. So they're going to go to Phastos. And we get a flashback to Hiroshima 1945, just after the dropping of the nuclear bomb. And you get this scene between Ajak and Phastos, who blames himself for providing the technology which the humans used to like basically create a nuclear bomb and destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And Phastos is very like, he's broken up, and he says the Druid was right, and their mission was a mistake, and he doesn't care about the humans at this point in time. We jump to present day. Phastos, who I think might be Chicago. I couldn't figure out where they were, but yeah. Phastos, his husband, Ben, who's played by Haas Slyman, and their son, Jack, who's played by Issei Cross, are out in the yard. They're playing, Phastos is fixing the bike, and his husband and his son are playing football. And just then, two old friends of Phastos from college show up, Sylvia and Isaac. Okay. Circe and Icarus. When you talk about like the changing of the name of Makari to Mercury and Athena to Athena, that's what was reminded of at this point in time. He's just like doing his best. Didn't come up with great ones. So they go inside the house. I would say this, all the scenes of Phastos and Jack and an Eternal are all very humorous. And he's trying to like cover things up. He, Jack is outside. He recognizes Icarus. He's like, "Oh, you're the Superman. I saw you. You're in London with the cape." And Icarus says he basically admits it was him. He said, "I don't wear a cape." And Phastos has this funny scene. He's like, "Okay, well, we should just go inside, right? Can I call you Clark? Is that what you go by now? Because And Icarus goes, "You've called me worse," which is very funny. Like, you start to see some of this kind of older interaction. So gets us into bed, brushes teeth. This kind of like unnatural, them like he's reading a Star Wars magazine and she's like holding a coffee mug when she comes in, and they have this interaction where basically Phastos doesn't want to join. He's got his family, he can't risk losing them. He they get the funny scene with his table made of vibranium and he smashes it. It's IKEA ass. But eventually Ben reminds him that it's the only way to save him and his son. He needs to go.
Yeah, so now we have recruited most of the gang, right?
It's like a real Ocean's 11 vibe, right?
Right. yeah. Take like zoom back and you realize this is actually kind of a heist movie. But
which would make me like it more because I love a heist movie.
So we head to Iraq, aka Babylon, right? The Eternals go to the valley in Iraq where the Domo has been hidden for centuries. They board the ship and find Makari hanging out, ready to go home.
I'm not sure they can be able to go there, Makari.
About that. So Makari says, "So you mean I've been waiting for all these centuries to go back to Olympia, and now you're telling me it doesn't exist?"
Kingo is so funny. He says
Kingo.
that, and the world is ending.
Makari, at least my boredom is ending. And I will note, when we say Makari is saying things, she is signing them, right? Because
Right.
she is deaf.
One of the things that also too, they were writing the script all as they went along, and so her husband, who's helping with ASL, would like help them up. Camille Nanjiani talked about how it was really important. He wanted to be authentic with his sign language, and so he would like, the script change would come, and he would text her husband, and he would do a video of the sign, and he were like studying it. It was like really, really important. And on watch, not rewatch, on watch, that really kind of struck me of like, oh, there's a family that's been together for a very long period of time, and just I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know ASL well enough to like know it, but I'm sure there is like shortcuts you take in how you sign, right? Like with any language, there's kind of shortcuts that you build in that your family knows, right? And that sort of thing. And so that's cool that they built it in that way, so that there was kind of a dialect to it, if you will. So Fastos describes his invention, the Unimind, which will allow the Eternals to combine their energy, supercharge Druig's mind control abilities.
Terrible name.
Could have been the Brainstorm.
Like, no, I invented it, so I'm calling it whatever I want.
The Unimind is a concept from the comics. Now, it's not necessarily a mechanical machine. It's more of like a technique that they do, and then they actually call the entity that comes from that Unimind the Unimind as well. So it's almost like another character, if you will. It's kind of all their combined consciences working together and creates kind of this big brain that's its own character sort of thing. So Cersei suggests that they could find a new planet for the humans. Sprite and Kingo turn to Icarus for guidance, but he defers to Cersei kind of in a shady kind of way. He's just like, she got picked. Talk to her. And so they, obviously this is where we start to see the group kind of cracking up a little bit.
Yeah, it's also interesting because he had really been her number two, right, for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
And there, when you see the characters in the movie, there's definitely appears to be kind of a pecking order. They're the ones that are like the attacking ones, the Gilgamesh, the Kingo, the Icarus, and the ones that are more support, if you will, that are not.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, sure, it makes very much sense that the most powerful person would lead the group.
Right. And right up until the scene we're about to get to, we find out, it's hard to understand why Ajak would have picked Cersei, other than her love for the people.
Right. Yep. Her love for the people and her like view on how she would lead them and to avoid the mission, right?
Yeah.
To avoid the emergence.
Well, everybody looks up to Icarus. He tells Icarus tells Kingo they can't really know. They don't really know him. Yeah, and then we get the big betrayal flashback scene between Ajak and Icarus. Back in South Dakota, they discuss the nature of the emergence. Ajak tells Icarus that she has doubts about Arisham's plan. She was changed after the events of the blip and wants to stop the emergence. So this is kind of cool, and I felt like this was a really natural way of like building in this is a post-blip movie, right? Like there was the little bit unnatural way of talking about it early on, where it's like, why didn't you guys get involved? Oh, because we can't, because that's humans doing human. But I thought this was a really interesting way where like this third person superhero watched as like a group of humans plus some aliens kind of like was really inspired by their tenacity and really inspired by what they did with the blip, where Ajak is kind of like, okay, cool, these these humans are actually pretty impressive, and the things that they do is actually pretty strong. And so maybe we just need to let them be and let them keep evolving. And maybe Arishem is wrong, right? Maybe on the cosmic scale, this is a population that should continue to exist.
Right. She has followed him for millions of years, and this is the first time she realized she's thinking and verbalizing to someone else. Right. That's the whole thing. She's thought it for a very long period of time, but the first time she verbalizes it to the wrong person, that the cost of the design, it's not worth it. Question for you, while we're on the topic of the blip, and we're talking topic of Thanos. So Thanos was a hero? Do you think Thanos knew about the Celestials? Like, because I tend to think he did. Maybe same for the spoiler show, but like I think he absolutely knew.
This is one of those like eternal debates, man, and I've heard it in the fan community a million times of like what, because right, like Thanos' plan could have absolutely gone the other way, right? He could have, with the Infinity Gauntlet, he could have made abundance in the galaxy or in the universe, right? He could have said, double
the supplies. Yep.
Double the supplies instead of half the people. And so I think there is some likelihood that he knew. I think if we ever find out that Thanos knew about this, it would be a retcon. I don't think anyone, Feige included, at the point where they were making Infinity War, actually thought Thanos knew. They were just trying to mirror his Infinity Gauntlet arc, right, where in the comics he's trying to appease death, right? He's trying to flirt with death.
Yep.
Versus this, they didn't necessarily have death in the movies at that point, and so it didn't make sense to have that specific part of it come out. So I think that, retconning, thinking back on it, I wouldn't, maybe that's the whole thing. And I mean, we'll see his brother here in a couple of scenes. So obviously they're kind of aware of the Eternals and the Celestials and all that.
I think, we'll put a pin on it because we can nerd out on it on the super secret spoiler show. I think Thanos did know. I think he realized the Celestials' plan, and that just makes Tony Stark the bad guy. But let's keep going.
So Icarus tells Ajax that he has to show her something first in Alaska.
That's such the bad, dude. That's such the bad. Something bad is going to happen. I just have to show you something first,
right? Yeah. Never is that followed with anything but like concrete boots in the ocean. He shows her a lake of deviants that had been frozen for centuries. Icarus is ultimately loyal to Arishem and his mission, so he pushes Ajax off the ledge. She's attacked by deviants and ultimately killed by Crow, who absorbs her healing power. Icarus takes Ajax's body back home before breaking down over what he had done.
The cool visual effect, which I noticed, was when they all use their Eternal's power. There's like this kind of golden glow. Mm-hmm. There's the Gilgamesh who's got the fist, and so you see Crow use it to heal the other deviants, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's where he kind of grows Crow grows the deviants into their like new, more powerful power versions, right? With the wings and the dogs and the horns and all that.
Yeah, and so when Icarus said, basically mirroring Kingo's line, "I will follow you to the end as I always have," technically true.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of.
True.
Till he helps kill her.
Back on the Domo, Cersei senses the beginning of the emergence. Phastos needs more time to build his device, so he sends Makari out to find Tiamat, who is at a volcanic island in the Canary Islands. I mean, the Indian Ocean. This was shot on the Canary Islands, but
was it? I know.
Yep. Icarus tells Cersei that he wishes that she didn't know the truth and turns on the other Eternals. Icarus admits that he killed Ajak and will kill the rest of them to serve Arisham's plan. Sprite chooses to go with him because she loves him. You guys didn't pick up on that? Kingo. Kingo, trapped in kind of the indecision, just bails out. Just decides he's not going to take part.
This is where, like, again, not knowing the characters at all, it just seemed, I know Sprite is in love with Icarus, but to hear that he killed Ajak, like, I don't know the logic why you would do that. Anyway. And then Kingo's like, I believes in the mission, but doesn't believe in like what Ajak is doing. And then he bails out. It was just this weird turn. And I don't know if it was just to like, I mean, you do it for the plot device and you do it for the kind of to create the conflict, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But just it just seemed off to me.
Yeah. And this is something, and we can maybe talk about this more in our overarching thoughts, but this movie simultaneously did too much and too little, which I think it just ultimately means it did too much, where it tried to give all 10 of these characters, all 10 of these like Eternals, their own plot line and their own like deep story. But the problem is there's not enough runtime to do that well. And so everything just feels shallow.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, everything feels too shallow. But simultaneously, there's a version of this movie where they don't go as deep on any of those, right? And they just say, these guys have powers, these guys have conflict. You know, you kind of just leave it at a very surface level, and you don't try to get into any of the deeper stuff. And I think that's actually a better version of this movie. Where it's just kind of just because type of movie.
Yeah, let's save some of that because I have some thoughts on that. But when you talk about the depth, if you will, the pep talk that Thena gives, I found to be very touching.
Yeah. Thena gives Cersei a pep talk as to why she's the perfect leader for the group. Fastus arrives and tells her of his plan to connect Erisham to the Unimind. He removes the orb, don't kill her, and gets to perfecting the matching bracelets to power the Unimind.
When Thena says, I asked Gilgamesh once why he chose to protect me, he said, quote, when you love something, you protect it. It's the most natural thing in the world. You've loved these people since the day we arrived, so there's no one better to lead us now than you. And I thought that was a very kind of like touching, sentimental, probably Angelina Jolie's like best lines in the movie. Yeah. What did you think of the suit up scene? With the bracelets?
Dude, it's so cool. Like, I mean, it like, it's very like Power Rangers-y or you know, any of those where they kind of like stand in this chamber and the suits come down around them. Really cool for sure.
I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Yep. So Makari locates the exact point of the emergence, an active volcano in the Indian Ocean, and the Domo heads there to make a play.
So we're getting kind of like to the big fight scene. You know, let's exhaust whatever is left of our CGI budget and let's blow this out. So Sprite guards the emergence while Icarus goes to kill the other Eternals. Aboard the Domo, Icarus finally gets to fight Thena. I think you talked about it earlier in the movie before he takes off for Druig. And at the island, you see Cersei, Makari, and Thena. They're lending their energy to Druig to allow him to connect with Tiamat. But Icarus arrives and blasts Druig into a hole and destroys the Domo. And this is, I really enjoyed the scene. The Makari is awesome in these scenes. So she rescues Thena and Fastos from the ship, which Icarus just destroyed. And then she takes Icarus for a ride. And she's just like, I couldn't remember. There's another movie I remember like that had something like that, but it kind of shades of, maybe it was Iron Man when he's flying Hulk up the building.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In Age of Ultron.
Well, yeah. So, but you know, he is an extremely, he's the most powerful character of all of them, right? Like they all team up against him. They don't really do much damage, but it was, I really liked the scenes of her like avoiding the laser beams and like holding them off for a while, like holding her own. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Athena arrives to help distract Icarus so Cersei can get closer to Tiamat. When you talk about, every time I say Tiamat and you talk about the legendary like analog for that name, all I can think of is Tillamook cheese. And I don't know why. It's been bothering me the whole episode. Anyway, so
It's funny because I'm like, I have spent a lot of time in like fantasy circles, whether it be like D&D or like Magic the Gathering card game and stuff.
mhm.
And Tiamat is almost always a dragon in one of those. Like he's like the top he's the dragon god in D&D and that sort of stuff. He's like the best dragon.
Yeah.
So that's where every time I hear Tiamat, that's where I go.
I should have mentioned also too that the actress Lauren Ridloff, who is deaf but can speak, she actually improvised the scream for Makari, and she was pleased to her scream made it into the movie, made it into the final cut, which is cool, I thought. So Phastos's technology uses technology to subdue Icarus, and it's just like this kind of like you can just tell that for like the longest period of time, like Phastos has wanted to do this to show him like technology can defeat your kind of brute, like your strength, if you will. I thought it was really cool. While Crow appears, so Crow senses the time, jumps in to try to beat the Eternals. He impersonates Gilgamesh and attempts to take over Athena's mind, but she's able to resist him and kills the Deviant. Like, I think that was the time where Cersei climbs to the volcano. Sprite uses her powers to imitate Ajax and then ambushes Cersei by stabbing her in the back. To quote Tony Stark, "Dick move, Banner." Sprite fires up her powers and says, "Well, we get to start over somewhere new," before she's knocked out by Druig, who just like, the scene where, Sprite is now like in charge and she's creating these illusions, and then Druig just comes up and smacks her with a rock.
Yeah.
As well. Well, that was very moving. So emergence is in full swing, and I'm getting also very, very much, vibes around like how sustainability and the environment, global warming kind of stuff. And so you could see basically the Earth is birthing this gigantic thing, and you start to see just one finger pop up, and then you see the hand. So Icarus breaks free from Phastos's restraints and flies to stop Cersei, but can't bring himself to kill her. He and Sprite surrender to the Unimind, which is enough for Cersei to freeze Tiamat and turn it to stone. And it's just like this, at the end, it's the head and hand, which are peeking above the clouds. Like,
right.
I'd read articles that would talk about this movie, and they'd talk about this thing in the Indian Ocean. Like, what's going on there? I know we'll put a pin on like what that material is used for.
Yeah.
But we will see it in a couple movies, or we'll see it in one movie for sure. We'll see it in a bit in Brave New World. I did like in She-Hulk, she's looking at some article on the internet, and there's a link to an article. So why is there a giant statue of a man sticking out of the ocean? So I just thought it was kind of cool that you have this huge new landmark, which I have much more appreciation now that I've gotten through 2 hours of the movie. So
I will say, watching it to the nth time, like I have here, it does drive me nuts because the scale of Tiamat changes a lot. Like, depending on how they're shooting it, it definitely feels like it's different scales, right? So there's the like shot from outer space where you see the curvature of the Earth, and you see the head's huge, and the palm, is seemingly as large as the head. But then there's like scenes where like the curvature of the palm just doesn't make sense for it being that large. Or the like head, you can see the whole head from standing in the palm, which I would think would be challenging with something that large.
I couldn't tell how big the Celestials were. I was thinking they were kind of galactic sized, but
Yeah.
they're obviously not. What I just thought of as you spoke was it also kind of harkens back to think of like early, especially like Jack Kirby and others, like early comic artistry, like the proportions were actually off, right?
Right.
And so you would
Right.
see like oversized muscles or the appendages were not quite the right size. And so when you see the hand, which is bigger than the head, you're kind of like, okay, maybe that was just like a little nod to like the comics where things are
Could
not
be.
necessarily scale. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean we railed on this during all the way back in our Incredible Hulk episode, right? Because his scale changed a lot in that movie. The scale of the
It was
Hulk character.
all over the place.
Um and I think this is a little bit less so because it's a giant landmark, so there's just not as much like point of reference for that. But yeah, that's one nit to pick of a really beautiful, like really great CGI kind of work. It does do that. Um, I will also note that during this fight is where I realized that the power sets of the Eternals very closely mirror the Justice League.
Oh, I
Um,
think they're analogs for a bunch of Marvel characters, but we'll get into
yeah,
that another time.
yeah. So we move on, and it's wrapping up here, right? So Icarus apologizes to Cersei, and in the face of failure and guilt, leaves Earth and flies into the sun, completing his Icarus arc. Cersei uses the remainder of the Unimind power to transform Sprite into a human, allowing the 7,000-year-old adolescent to finally begin to age. And
Bad
I will
call.
note,
Bad call.
the actor who played Sprite, she was like 13 or 14 throughout this movie, and I like props to her because she played a 7,000-year-old like adult in a child's body magnificently.
Yeah,
Um,
Leah McHugh. She was like 14, and I think it was 15 when the movie came out.
yeah, she would have been 15 when the movie 15 when it came out, and they were filming it for a few years with the pandemic in there and all that. So, um, final few minutes of the movie, we see a fun scene where at Ajax Ranch, where Fastos is trying to parent Jack around the other Eternals. Makari, Druig, and Thena leave Earth on the Domo to find Eternals from other worlds and tell them about the Celestials.
I
Meanwhile,
do like real quick. I do like where Thena can't operate the toaster,
oh yeah,
and Jack's like I get kind of confused too, and he tries to reach the orange, and she creates the
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 spear.
spirit that like stabs and brings it down. It's like, and he goes like, okay, Jack, we talked about earmuffs, right? He's like, and then those were like I think were some of my favorite scenes where he's trying to awkwardly
There,
parent around the Eternals.
the writer and director did a fantastic job of making these distinctly inhuman, larger than life characters so human. I think that's one of the big takeaways I had from this, and especially apparent with Fastos, where he is distinctly human, and very, just very real and very enjoyable for that. Um, Meanwhile, Cersei, Kingo, and Fastos elect to remain on Earth. We return to London and see that Kingo has agreed to help raise Sprite. Cersei is reunited with Dane, and he is just about to tell her his complicated family history. Erisham appears and yoinks Cersei, Kingo, and Fastos into space and tells them that he will spare the Earth for now, but will return for judgment for the planet. Kind of bringing it back over to comic book continuity, right? So less of the like birthing Eternals and more of the like judging species.
This ending did not make any sense to me. Like I don't know why Erisham would be all cool with it. Like, well, you know what? I'm gonna save your memories. We'll go back and scan it to see if it was worth it or not. If so, then if not, then I'm gonna just destroy everyone. I just anyway, we got to that point.
Yeah.
It's like you got to wrap up the movie on some note. There was an alternate ending though, which was much darker, which is they're on the ship everyone's mind erased and they're just going to the next planet, like the Twilight Zone.
Oh,
And the director Chloé Zhao was like, "Well, they didn't necessarily want to leave it that way because you want to be excited for what's next. I don't know, people be super excited to basically do the same thing again,
yeah.
right? But yeah, much darker. They'll be like, ooh, that's sort of depressing ending."
Yeah. All right. So, that's the end of the movie. Let's get into our
By the way,
closing thoughts.
one real quick comment though, too.
Yeah.
The credits are beautiful.
Oh, yes.
I didn't note it, but like just each one there was a unique thing as to each one. It was great to watch.
Yeah, it was really great. And the soundtrack also to this movie is kind of underrated, but also really good.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit of just standards, right? But standard pop musics, but really well done.
Yeah, I wish there would have been credit scenes afterwards, but whatever, it's fine.
We'll get to those, David. We'll get to them. So let's do our closing thoughts. Main takeaway, kind of why was this movie significant if it was, right? And it's okay. I think we're getting into some movies where we may have to say it wasn't significant, but why was this one significant? What was kind of our main takeaway from this one?
From a story perspective, they wanted to go in a different way, right? Greek mythology story set in a world of like the familiar world we're in, superheroes. So they're taking a big swing at it. They're trying to, the gods, kind of what are effectively gods, reconciling with the nature of humanity and their own judgment. You see, the split between, if you will, like how they all kind of process it and how, who is empathetic. Drew wants to stop the fighting, so that part I thought they did a good job. Why it's significant for me is more the fact that it is like the diversity, inclusiveness. I know that that's like not necessarily a thing that's embraced by a lot of folks, but the cast, you had a diverse cast, you had a deaf character, you had the first like openly LGBTQ character, and it all just seemed very normal, right? Growing up in the Bay Area, like it's a very diverse place, and it just seems sort of normal. And this is like probably the first film I can say, well, Shang-Chi felt very normal because it felt like it was set in Asian area of San Francisco, but it felt like, oh, this is normal. You have a group of diverse set of characters, and yes, one person can't hear, and there's a person of different backgrounds, if you will. And so for that, and to kind of tie it together, and I thought for me, that was the reason why it was significant.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with all that. I think that for sure there was a lot of that. There to me, there's also this, like we talked about a little bit, of like this was the first film directed by somebody who had an Academy Award under their belt for direction by the time the movie came out.
Yep.
And I think it shows, right? Like, this is the tenor of this movie is so different. It's not big bombastic fights. It's an investigation of what does it mean to be immortal, and what does that look like, and how does that work? And so this was so vastly different from the MCU that we got during the Infinity Saga, right? The Infinity Saga was just fights, a couple breaks here and there from that, but like nothing like this, where the tone, even just the color tone of the movie was so different. It was not your bright, vibrant colors. It was muted. It was more subdued, and the movie overall was just kind of more subdued in that way. And it was a gamble, and depending on where you land, and we'll talk about this here in a couple questions, but it may or may not have been a gamble that paid off. And so I think, this was at a time in Marvel where they were experimenting a little bit, right? Like, Shang-Chi was the safest bet out of actually, I would say probably Spider-Man No Way Home was the safest
Yeah,
bet
that's your safe bet, right?
out of 2021. But like, honestly, the 5 movies that you're looking at here, where it's like Shang-Chi, well, let's throw in Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home. Let's go out to 6 movies and include both Love and Thunder and Multiverse of Madness. That kind of 6-pack of movies, everything was a little bit of a gamble, right? Everything had some elements of it that were challenging for audiences to consume, and this was one of those, and this was a interesting experiment, I would say. So
Yeah, when we do the phase review, it'll be interesting to talk, because I feel like when they got done with phase 3, when they got done with like the original saga, the Infinity Stone saga, they felt like they had to like go in a slightly different direction. And so you do get the Black Widow standalone movie. You do get Eternals, which was a big swing. You had some familiarity. You had Thor comes back, Black Panther comes back, but it was their attempt to make this kind of big ensemble cast to kind of basically redo what they did with Guardians, right? We got something weird. You like that weird Guardians thing? Guess what we got for you? Twice as many people in this weird, godlike, space, time travel movie, which, they did something different.
Yeah, I've often described this as like a very DC feeling movie, because DC tends to deal with some of these themes a lot, because Superman is runs these sort of lines often. And so I do think the themes of this movie and that sort of thing felt very DC to me. Which is cool. And we'll get into whether we liked it or not right after we get to our MVPs. So, I'm going to ask 2 questions for you, David, on MVPs. And they might be the same answer. One is, who's your MVP? We ask this every movie. Nobody came back. Literally nobody came back. So we don't have to go through who have we picked before. The other question I would ask is, if your MVP is not your favorite Eternal, who was your favorite Eternal?
Okay. This is, I thought about this question, and I kind of actually approached it like you did. The part that's challenging is that because it has such a huge cast, right? I mean, let's be honest. There's a couple characters who were on the screen for quite a bit of period of time, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that either one of them was the best part of the movie, if I'm being honest. Like, I thought, Gemma Chan and Richard Madden are both beautiful to look at. I felt like their chemistry was kind of like meh as compared to some of the others. But you can't go for, Salma Hayek, because she's in the movie for like 10 minutes, like if she had a more prominent role.
Dude, that hit me where it's like, you have these 2 mega stars. Like, Salma Hayek and Angelina Jolie are like mega stars, right? And they get the least role in this movie out of everybody. They get like, I don't know what the actual screen time looks like, but I would guess that they get some of the smallest roles, some of the least amount of screen time of anybody in this movie.
They got the screen time. It's Cersei is 48 minutes of screen time. Richard Madden is second. Sprite is third. Angelina Jolie is fourth.
Okay.
Kingo's, but we're talking, this is like in the kind of the 12 to 14, 15, 20 minute range, if you will. Mm-hmm. I like Kumail Nanjiani, but he, disappears for part of the movie. Yeah. And depending on your perspective, he's the, kind of quirky, quippy Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But if you don't like Kumail Nanjiani, he's kind of like, he's kind of the douchebag guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so when I say who my MVP is, I'm probably going to have to go with Gemma Chan as Cersei. She carried most of the movie. She's in it for the majority of it, if you will. I think that she does a good job of expressing the, humanity inside what it's like to be an Eternal. And, she's kind of the backbone of the movie, if we're being honest. She's not my favorite character, but I would say she would be my MVP.
That's fair. Who's your favorite Eternal?
I think I like Phastos.
That's a good call. I like Phastos a lot. And Phastos is running in there for my MVP mostly because I just like tech guys, and so like I'm an Iron Man fan. What is Phastos but like Eternal's Iron Man?
How about you? Who is your MVP and who's your favorite?
Yeah, that's really tough.
Also, who's your least favorite?
I think I'm gonna go with my MVP being Sprite.
Really?
Yeah, this is an actor pick, right? In when we've done these MVPs a few times, we've talked about like who's really important to the story, who's our favorite, who is maybe an actor that does really well. I think it's striking just how well the Sprite was acted, because that role could very easily fall into could be very crappy, right? It could be a poorly done job and be a teenager who is showing up as a teenager rather than showing up as somebody who is kind of world weary and been around for 7,000 years, and the chops on that I think are really impressive. So
I will say this. I had a different. Well, I will say this in support of your argument. There's a deleted scene between her and Dane Whitman where they're in the museum and they're walking around, and you get to see more of her character. It's kind of too bad that wasn't in the movie. Because for me, she was actually one of my least favorite characters, if I'm being honest. But it's also some of it's the writing. Like Angelina Jolie is a great actor, and she's got some wooden ass lines in this movie. We're just like, why, So, I think to your point, like if you had half as many characters, right, and then you could bring in the next batch of Eternals in the next movie, I think that would have been a much easier watch. Or
even just like swallow the pill of like not every Eternal needs a backstory in this movie. Like some of them are just going to be Kingo who shows up to shoot lasers out of his fingers, right? And you don't need to hire a Kumail Nanjiani for that role. You need to, whatever. So yeah, I would say that my favorite Eternal is hard. I'm gonna say my top 3 real quick because
wait, you get 3, I get 1.
Hey, you can. Hey, feel free to piggyback off this and add a couple. But no, I really enjoyed. Phastos is great. Phastos, his wit and obviously being the tech kind of Eternal, I love that. I also really like Druig. I think he was using him as kind of as the center for the empathy side of the empathetic side of the Eternals, where he's watching humans and he's like, look, we could fix this, we could help with this. Was really interesting. I have an affinity, like cult type stuff is something I like learning about and watching like movies about and that sort of stuff. And so like his whole cult arc was really interesting to me. And then I would say like third was I actually really like Gilgamesh. Obviously he doesn't get a lot of development outside of like cares for Athena, but like he was fun. He was kind of the fun. He was almost like Wong, right? And I obviously guarding against a little bit of racial stereotyping there or whatever, but he kind of played the same role where he's this like side character who is actually pretty funny and kind of just understated in his humor. So I did like that.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the Eternals that appeared in the movie more than the ones that appeared more, if that makes sense. Like, I thought Fastos was great. I thought Makari was really good
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah, for
movie, and
sure.
the chemistry that she has with Druig in the movie is very kind of palpable. The part at the end, it's kind of flirty,
Mm-hmm.
and Camila Nanjiani is like, "You two, no, I'm not this." Like, but the part it was actually towards the end when they do the little kind of head touch. That was something that was kind of improv, and so to kind of see that I would agree with you. Like those were all underrated roles.
Yep.
The comic points that you talk about, there were a lot of people were straight. Gemma Chan, Richard Madden, like Angelina Jolie, very stiff, very like
Yeah.
Ajax. And I did like Fastos because his was the amount of humor. At points in time, I thought like Camille Nanjiani was almost too quippy.
Yeah.
But
This wasn't a quippy movie, right? Like this was not meant to be a quippy movie. And so like Brian Tyree Henry's kind of witty, at times sarcastic type of humor fit the tone of the movie far better than the quippy Kumail Nanjiani kind of like skadoosh or whatever he said when he
the movie,
shot.
yeah. But yeah, like the again, also kudos to Sarah Halligan for like bringing in like an amazing cast. The fact that you had Angelina Jolie appear in this movie
Yeah.
was insane.
And I mean, this is, you think about this is right off, because what Game of Thrones ended in 2020. Is that what I'm remembering? I think. And so you have two of the main dudes from Game of Thrones showing up. They're superstars at that point. You have Angelina Jolie and Selma Hayek, who are bona fide like A tier celebrities, right? S tier celebrities, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, you have some up and comers in like Gemma Chan and um um
Brian Tyree Henry or
Brian Tyree Henry
Barry
a little bit.
Keoghan?
Barry Keoghan is who I was thinking of, right? Like he had been in a couple of movies and things like that right before this, and then he fumbled the ball with Sabrina Carpenter more recently, but spoilers, sorry. But no, I kid. No, they're like, this is a completely overpowered cast, I would say.
Yeah. And the fact it cost 200 million, like salaries ate up a large chunk of it. Angelina Jolie, it's reported she got 35 million, which would be, I think, a record for like the first appearance in the movie. Selma Hayek got like 7 to 8 million. Gemma Chan got like 5. Madden got 4.5. So it's like, it kind of reminds you of the early days of the Avengers where we are trying to like, well, let's try to do this as cheap as possible. Oh, Angelina Jolie. Okay. Here's your boatload of money, Tony Stark. Like
right.
Robert Downey Jr. Anyway, yeah, no. Beautiful cast. Great to look at. How would you, like, if you were to rank this?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, I think, the pros of this movie, beautiful. I enjoy the story. I enjoy the investigation of kind of what does it mean to be eternal and what does it mean to be kind of a god among humans. I do enjoy that. I will say movie is brought down by just how much they tried to do with it. And I don't mean that. A lot of people say those same words when they're talking about overrepresentation and that sort of thing. And I want to be specific and say I don't, that is not what I mean. What I mean is just like every character had to have this deep backstory that just was simultaneously too deep and not deep enough.
People talk about how, Marvel, you pulled off a big, large ensemble cast with the Avengers. Endgame and Infinity War had like dozens of characters. So yeah, we've seen them all, right?
Right. They all had their own movie. Like
Guardians of the Galaxy brought in like 5 heroes.
Yeah,
right?
and none of them had deep backstories that were explored in the first movie.
Yeah, no, and so I think, well, let's get to our
Yeah,
rankings and how we
yeah.
can.
So I would put it in the multiverse saga. I would put it in the middle, middle. I would put it middle third. For those who don't know, if this is your first episode, we rank top third, middle third, bottom third. Um, so for me, in the multiverse saga, I'm putting it somewhere in the middle. For the movies overall, I'm probably putting it in the bottom third, but it might float up to the middle depending on other stuff that comes out. Um, so yeah, I think it's kind of that like middle to low part of the ranking for me. How about you, David?
So I, as I mentioned at the beginning, I wanted to come in with this with an open mind. I know it's been like poorly reviewed, and a lot of people didn't like it. If you look at any kind of ranking of MCUs, it's always MCU movies or MCU movies and properties. It's always near the very bottom. But I was like, you know what? Open mind. Let me not prejudge it. Let me just watch it on its own. It still comes into the bottom for me, bottom third for both. Now, it could get bumped up because there are some stinkers that are coming up in the bottom if we're talking about, especially if you start talking about, looking at you. Um, well, I won't get into it now. But anyway, it would be for me, bottom third. I think this would have been better off as a TV show. To me,
That's fair.
clearly, you could have spent more time with each character. You
Yeah.
could have had a longer runway, as you put it, to develop the characters more. Even at 2.5 hours, 2.5, it still felt parts of it felt a little rushed, if you will.
Yeah.
It jumps around way too much. And that part, I think, for an average moviegoer, and for me, it was challenging. And I'm sure for like somebody who's not some super nerd like me, is going to struggle with it. And I think that's probably why a lot of people didn't like it. I thought that, but visually it's beautiful. The cast is beautiful. When you're looking at the cast, you're like, Kit Harington, you're maybe the fifth best looking person in this movie. You're just like, wow, that is a murderer's row of really good and talent, if you will. But it just didn't land for me. The story finally, after watching it 2.5 times, finally made sense. I get what they're doing. And I did appreciate the Celestials piece and how they've kind of not necessarily laid the groundwork for future Eternals projects, but just, kind of, they took a swing for me. It just didn't
Yeah.
hit. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the story of these kind of risky movies, right? Guardians of the Galaxy could have totally ended up this same way. Ant-Man a little bit less so because Ant-Man's like a legacy character, but like pick out, name one of the risks they took, and it could have landed either way. And I think this is one that maybe the risk, there's no, I don't think there was any pre-planning that could have done any better for this, like short of turning it into a TV series or something. I will also say I feel like this movie was a love letter to Jack Kirby, who is severely underserved throughout the MCU. And go way back to one of our very first episodes, Marvel Legends, and I think we talked about that a little bit, of just how Jack Kirby, his estate has been fighting with Marvel for a long time, and not always, it's not always the healthiest relationship. So it was cool to see some of his characters get some shine and get a moment where like they get to be the stars. And like, whether it's because Stanley had already passed, so obviously he couldn't make a cameo, or something else, right? Like, this movie definitely felt more like Kirby's Marvel than like Stan's Marvel. And I think that is something that I appreciate about it, is that like it's kind of a different pocket of the universe.
Yeah.
In that way.
I think that's right. I was thinking about like, what if we had to put Stanley in this movie and the cameo? I was like, oh god, that would just ruin it. Like, because it is Jack Kirby's movie, right? And
Yeah.
so for that, I can appreciate the fact that like, even if they had said, hey, look, we're going to make a movie in tribute to Jack Kirby, and that was the entire purpose, I'd be like, you know what, fair enough, good for him, and
Yeah.
hopefully his estate would get some money, because the ways in which the creatives were treated by Marvel throughout the years was not that great. I think Stanley gets a lot of credit for stuff that Jack Kirby did, and that there's, the collaborative process is such that like the writers are introducing like character elements through the artistry, but also it's not just like Stanley's writing it, you're writing it, I'm drawing it, and that's all I'm doing. Like it's much more than that. And so unfortunately, Kirby and others, Jim Starlin and others don't get the same level of props. I think it's very much a Stan Lee kind of like is the forefront, but it's way bigger than Stan Lee. So
for sure. Well, David, any other closing thoughts before we get on with our credits so that we can get to the end credits?
I did it, everyone. I finally did it. Like,
I'm proud of you, David.
When we started this, it's funny, when we started this podcast, I knew this day would come, and I was like, you know what? It'll be fine. Like I was, like I said, I was a little nervous not having a lot of background to it, but yeah, rounded it out. So
nice.
Look at me, all grown up.
Woohoo!
I'm reminded of Paul Rudd, like on Hot Ones. He's like, look at us. Right.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, please remember to check out our social medias. We are Puny Pod cross-platform. Just search for us; you'll find us. We are in the process of starting a new podcast that David and I will both appear on, called Fantasyland Draft League. We're kind of recording first initial episodes for that right now, and hopefully should have that in podcatchers in January is the goal. But you can listen to the test episode of it. We released a test episode of it over on the Supreme Resort under the title Dirty Yellow Strap presents Fantasyland Draft League. So go listen to that. It's kind of a goof off. We're having a good time. No prep. It's not researched. We obviously do a lot of research for this show. So we wanted to have something that we could kind of just show up to and have some good times with. So starting another show over there. Check out the Discord that's in the show notes. That is the Ears Up Discord. I'm active on there fairly often, so go check that out. We tend to talk about every Marvel project when it comes out there. Check out our monthly Bugle episodes for current content. But other than that, thank you all for listening. We appreciate you all. And Puny Pod will return in Hawkeye. All right, so we have two scenes here. So we have a mid-credit and a post-credit. I'll grab the mid-credit. David, I'll let you talk about the post-credit scene. So mid-credits, we've got Thena, Druig, and Makari, who have taken off into space to go warn the other Eternals about what's going on. Suddenly, they all start to feel something happening in the ship. And drunkenly, Pip the Troll teleports onto the ship. Says, "Behold, the royal prince of Titan, brother of Thanos, knave of hearts, defeater of Roger, the great adventurer, Star Fox of Mystery Planet." Pip the Troll was voiced by Patton Oswalt, by the way.
His second MCU role.
Where was his first? Why
MODOK.
can't I remember? Oh, yes. MODOK, MODOK in the FX MODOK.
Yeah.
Yep. Eros greets his fellow Eternals and tells them that their friends are in trouble, and the two of them are there to help. Eros, played by international superstar um,
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Pip the Troll was introduced, Strange Tales number 179, January of 1975, Jim Starlin. Star Fox, Iron Man 55, October of 1972, Jim Starlin. Quick comic history, because who knows if we're ever actually going to get Star Fox back in the MCU. We'll talk about that probably in the super secret spoiler show. Star Fox is the brother of Thanos in the comics, but both Thanos and Star Fox are from Titan, the moon of Saturn. So, but in the MCU, we've kind of tossed this idea out, right? We go to Thanos' home planet on Infinity War, but it's definitely not Titan, right? It's got its own moons and everything. And so a little bit of weirdness, and they had to throw in the mystery planet. The Knave of Hearts is actually an alternate reality version of Eros, who's set in a reality set in medieval times. Dark Roger is the monarch of Mystery Planet, and his arc with Star Fox is a little bit too silly for me to not share here. So Dark Roger is actually rejected by his love, Heater Delight, after she turned him down. She went partying with Star Fox in the club owned by Howlin' Wolf, who was a werewolf singer. Star Fox was successful in escaping Mystery Planet after Dark Roger teleports the club to Mystery Planet, and Star Fox is actually the first person to ever escape Mystery Planet.
God, drugs in the 70s must have been great.
Right? Well, tell us about the post-credit scene, David.
Yeah, the thing. This is actually, honestly, this was one of my favorite scenes in the movie. No, I'm just kidding. No, I have a fondness for Patton Oswalt, for sure. And so having seen him arrive was fun. I remember reading Pip the Troll and some of the characters, like Jim Starlin drawn comics, if you will. So that I enjoyed seeing. The CGI was awful. Like the voice did not match up strikingly off. But I guess they ran out of money at that point in time. It's fine.
Yeah, very much an afterthought kind of situation. Yeah,
totally. The post-credit scene at the very end. So we see Dane going back to, there was a point in time where he tells Cersei he has something very important he has to tell her, and then she gets yoinked, right? And he is in what appears, he's in the Natural History Museum of London, probably in his office. There is a box in front of him. He opens it up, and it contains the ebony blade, which is the twin sword of Excalibur, which was wielded earlier by Athena when she was, early in the movie. And it's a family heirloom sword that has been passed down generation to generation. There's a translation inscription which reads, "Death is my reward." And side note, I probably would have just closed the box and just called it a day. But Dane works up the courage. You see him, to take up that ebony blade. His hand gets closer, and the blade is starting to it almost reminded me of the symbiote, the Venom.
Yes.
Where it's
yes.
Right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so he's gonna Black Knight it up. And then you just hear a character off screen that says he wonders whether he's truly ready to yield it. And he said, "Sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?" And get closed credits, and it says Eternals will return. I am saddened. Saddened's not quite the word. I am want to do a past show correction that Mahershala Ali has never appeared in the MCU. He has, because he appeared right here. He was the voice, as confirmed by the director.
An MCU proper, right? Because now that Daredevil's part of the MCU, does that mean Luke Cage is part of the MCU, which means he was Cottonmouth in the MCU?
Yeah, I guess we can go down that road. But yeah, he was. This is his first and so far only appearance. Mahershala Ali as Blade. Maybe we'll get him. But this is a point in time, they were Blade is happening.
Yeah, this
Right.
was
This
like
is
for sure.
this is prime. We're going to blade this thing up. Did not happen. Mahershala, its first appearance, proper appearance in the MCU off screen. The Black Knight, first appeared Avengers number 47, October 1967, written by Roy Thomas and drawn by John Buscema. And in the comics, Blade and the Black Knight are teammates on the British superhero team MI13. There was also an idea that the director talked about that the voice was instead going to be Anthony Mackie as new Captain America, which would have been kind of interesting. But this is, they're laying the breadcrumbs big time that it's going to be Black Knight, Blade, like these are going to be the new characters that appear in the MCU. But
yeah,
it didn't quite happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah, there was a lot of touches of like, are we going to get the British side of the Marvel universe, right? Like Athena wields Excalibur earlier in the movie, and makes reference to Arthur and like Excalibur and Arthur, like King Arthur as well as are in the Marvel world, and there's like Captain Britain and all kinds of stuff. There's a whole part of the Marvel universe that takes place in Britain, that this movie kind of edged us towards, right? Maybe we're gonna get Black Knight. Maybe unfortunately we got none of it, but there definitely was a lot in this movie that edged towards that stuff.
Yeah, maybe get Spitfire, maybe get Union Jack, maybe get all those characters come in, or maybe you do a gender swap and you bring in Captain Carter, like whatever.
Right.
Like you can certainly envision something like that. I remember all those comic books way back when. Yeah, so that's it. Eternals, but they say Eternals will return. We did get Camille Nanjiani. No. Icarus appeared in Zombies, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Icarus was in Zombies.
Camille Nanjiani wasn't he in? He was in one of the What Ifs. I felt like.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Kingo. I remember. I vaguely remember. I have vague memories of that. I don't know which What If story. But yeah, I mean, technically they've returned, I guess. So, all right, David. Well, let's get on out of here, and we'll talk to all of our listeners here soon. See y'all.